I'm Liz Porter.
And I'm Fons. Welcome to So Many Quilts.
Today we're going to be showing you how to make a scrap quilt that is made from literally hundreds of fabrics. Normally, cutting the fabrics for a quilt like this becomes a major chore. I have closets full of fabrics, but I hate dragging them all out and cutting a little bit of fabric from each of the different pieces.
The quilt on the wall is a corn and beans quilt. It's a multi-fabric patchwork quilt that I gave to my mother for Christmas. I made the quilt after our friends got together. We had a cutting bee. We cut hundreds and hundreds of triangles, and I pieced the quilt, and I realized as Christmas was rolling around that I'd been quilting for 10 or 15 years, and I had never given a quilt to my mother. The look that you have in this quilt is very traditional, and we accomplish that, by using lots of different colors. We use pink, we use blue, we use black, lots of red, lots of different prints in all these different colors. As Liz was saying, cutting your fabrics one by one, dragging each one out of the closet and cutting them takes so much time that what we like to do is draw our friends together for a cutting bee. And we're going to tell you how to organize a cutting bee for yourselves.
Let's move over and show how we accomplished doing a cutting bee, Marianne.
Well, in the old days, we all have heard about the pioneer times when women on the prairie had the old-fashioned quilting bee, and the story goes, or the folklore, we're not sure how true to life all these tales of quilting bees are, but the idea was that the women pieced their patchwork tops during the winter, they assembled their tops, and then they would get together, and as a group they would put the quilts in the frame, and they would get together and they would quilt as a group through the day. They would bring their food, they would share recipes, they would share gossip from the neighborhood, and they would get the quilt together, and it was a very social activity.
What's always worried me just a little bit where there are a large number of Mennonite women, and when you indeed see 14 or 15 women sitting around a quilt.
So quilters today are still very social. They love getting together, they love working on quilts together, but it's really rare that they get together to actually quilt on a quilt. Our cutting bee is sort of a modern, newfangled variation on the old-fashioned quilting bee. What we do is set a date on our calendars, call 5 or 6 friends,
and decide on an overall color or mood that we want our quilts to have. One of our favorite moods that we use is a country look or an old-time look. We choose red fabrics, blue fabrics, black fabrics.
And here's another block that is a wonderful block for multi-fabric quilts. It's called Rocky Road. And you can see, looking at the block, that it uses small squares, large squares, and large triangles. We have a box of fabric to show you what that's like.
This is the fabric I'm bringing for our cutting bee.
Okay.
So would you help yourself, Marianne?
So these fabrics in Liz's sweater box.
I want the bug fabric.
Okay, here's the one with the houseflies.
Yeah, we thought this was just oodles of fun.
Right.
I'll take that. And how about the green?
Okay. Okay, so let's put our box away.
I'm going to slide it over here so it's out of our way.
Okay, so once we all get together, we've all brought a potluck dish too. We have them in the kitchen for lunchtime because cutting strips, you burn a lot of calories and you need to have lunch all set out before you. We have our corn and beans quilt, the corn and beans, and as we started today, we talked about the corn and beans quilt. The corn and beans block uses 2 corn and beans quilt. The corn and beans block uses 2 sizes of triangle, large triangles and small triangles, and we cut those in a cutting bee, and I stitched them together into blocks. And a block that is a wonderful block for multi-fabric quilts.
So let's start by cutting the strips that we're going to make.
Okay. All right. We need to cut 4.5-inch wide strips and 2.5-inch wide strips.
Right.
And from the 4.5-inch wide strips, we'll cut squares and triangles. And from the 2.5-inch wide strips, we'll just be cutting squares for this particular block.
I'm going to cut
each fabric. Okay.
I'm going to cut. I'll start with that.
Okay. It's so much fun to work at a table with all your friends. Sometimes we have several tables scattered around the room and talk just like in the old days. We catch up on everybody's family, what everybody's doing, the latest recipes, politics, religion, you name it.
One of the things I enjoy about our quilting friends is that they're a variety of ages, and it really helps give me a perspective on knowing what they have to expect with 3 teenage children, which is the phase that I'm at.
If your child has just gone away to college, it's really helpful that somebody else's went away a few years ago, and you can And you know, sometimes you might think about getting together for the cutting bee and you think, gee, I'm going to give up all my fabrics, but it's just like one of those cookie exchanges that you have at Christmas time. Now when you're cutting, as we said, you need to fortify yourself. So we always have a bowl of chocolate candies, so we reward ourselves every few strips so you can keep your energy level high. I'm going
to dump this.
Okay, okay. All right, now one of these is for me, and one of these is for you. Okay, and then I've got this, and this one is for you. This goes on your 2.5-inch pile. Okay. I want to move this back a little bit, and a lot of times we use a pizza box. All of us quilters eat a lot of pizza because we don't like to cook as much as we once did, and so you can always stop by your local pizzeria and ask for a brand new, clean pizza box, and then when you're piling up your pizzas, you can stack them in your box like this. This is a fresh box. This is exciting.
We're just starting to fill this one from our cutting bee.
But I may be needing these, so I'm going to take them back out, and I'm going to hold on to them, and we'll keep our pizza box for filling up later.
Should we show how to make some blocks from the pieces that we've just cut?
We need to cut some squares, some small squares, though, don't we?
Yeah, I'll cut some small squares.
Okay.
I could come back in and use the triangle, just as Marianne did for the larger pieces. Get a set of triangles.
Okay. Oops. And let's see what I've got here.
I'm going to move these over.
Okay. Well, have we got any other light triangles? I guess we'll have to use the fly fabric again there. I wouldn't really want to, but...
Let's switch them around.
Oh, how about that?
Okay. I'm going to pick up these pieces and move them over.
Can I get this out of your way?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, good.
You know, one of the things I've hated about getting old is the fact that every year I quilt, it gets a little harder to thread the sewing machine. And when I'm doing this, this is a kind of a mindless process. So when I'm at home, I do it while I'm watching TV.
Books on tape.
Listening to books on tape, while I'm listening to the radio, maybe while I'm sitting and visiting with my family. Sometimes they think I'm ignoring them.
Oh, we're out of bottom thread too.
So.
Okay. Why don't I go to the wall and show how we can put these blocks together to make a Rocky Road quilt.
Sounds like a good plan.
Laying our blocks up on what we like to call a working wall, and Liz and I each have a situation like this at home in our sewing room so that as we are sewing a project, as we're working up blocks, we can lay them up on the wall and kind of get a feel for the whole quilt and how it's going to look when it's completed. Sometimes you simply pass through the room and you see that maybe you'd like to reposition one block in a different. For workshops, what we like to do is use a vinyl tablecloth and throw that up on the wall and play around with the flannel side of that.
I've got my machine rethreaded.
Good,
so
okay.
I think I'm back in operation again.
Okay.
Seems to always happen
at the worst times.
I've always found that when I'm demonstrating, that's usually when we have operation errors.
Our students are always happy to see that happens to us too.
Let's talk about joining the pieces, and then for variety, why don't I sew the 3 rows?
We have
together?
rows. Okay, should I remove these rows and bring, well, we've got these already here. So I'll give those to you. I'll move this out of your way and stack these up for sewing later.
Our first piece in the row is 2 triangles.
Okay, you want that? Great, great.
Okay, I have the 2 of the rows joined together for the block.
And then we'll just simply put this one,
using simply add the 3rd row onto the side.
This one uses the same size triangles and squares that we were working with, and this block is called, I have my note here, World's Fair. This one's called Brave New World, where we have the small triangles, the large triangles, and the small squares. This one is Flock of Birds. And here we have another one, Cat's Cradle. And here's a beautiful star block that also came out of a cutting bee. We have so much fun at our cutting bees. We look forward to them with great delight, getting together with friends just like we always did, like they always did in the old days. So we hope that you'll get together with your friends, your potluck lunch, your pizza box, your rotary cutters, and you'll have a cutting bee in the near future.
Today we'd like to share with you some suggestions and tips for keeping your sewing and your work area much more organized.
Our first tip is from Shelley Granfield from Lorimer, Iowa. In fact, all our tips today are from our quilting friends in Iowa. Shelley suggests using a small plastic container, such as a margarine container or a whipped topping container, any kind of little plastic tub like this, that you can put on your table near your sewing machine, and those little threads, those little scraps, you can just drop them in there, and it saves you the time of putting them in the wastebasket, and then when this is full, you can just dump it right into the trash.
Judy Allen from Nevada, Iowa, suggests that you keep a wastebasket on both sides of you while you're sewing, one to your right and one to your left.
You can just dump it right into the trash.
You're likely to hit the wastebasket.
Didn't she call that power sewing?
She called that power sewing.
Power sewing days.
She also suggested that when you go to a workshop and it's not convenient to take your wastebasket along, that you take some paper lunch bags.
And just tape that on the table.
Tape that on the table. You'll need to fluff the bag out a little bit.
And I've often had monitors at workshops. My student helper at workshops will bring a whole supply of paper bags and we'll tape them on everybody's table. That's very helpful. Another great tip we have, and I like to quote my friend Dolly Donhauser of Fairfield, Iowa. She said one time, you don't want the back of your quilt to look like the inside of a pumpkin. So here we have a block, a kind of a hairy mess you can get if you haven't trimmed your pumpkin. So no pumpkins on the back of your quilt. And we'd like to thank all our Iowa friends for sending us their tips. And we invite you to send us your quilt making tips. If we use them on so many quilts, we'll mail you an autographed copy of our Quilter's Complete Guide. Send your tips to Quilting Tips, So Many Quilts, P.O. Box 171, Winterset, Iowa 50273.
We hope you enjoyed today's program. Please join Mary Ann and me next week for So Many Quilts.
The patterns and instructions for most of the quilts shown on today's program are in the book Quick Quilts from the Heart by Liz Porter and Mary Ann Fons, published by Oxmoor House and Leisure Arts. This book is available at your local quilt shop, sewing shop, or bookstore, or by calling 1-800-SEW-MANY. Or send your check for $19.95 plus $3.50 shipping and handling to Book Offer, So Many Quilts, P.O. Box 9320, Des Moines, Iowa 50306. Funding for So Many Quilts was provided by Oxmoor House, publishers of fine quilt, sewing, craft, home decorating, and cooking books. Leisure Arts, a leading publisher and distributor of quality needlework and craft publications and products. Bernina of America, delivering sewing technology and education to sewers worldwide. And Omnigrid, manufacturer of quilting rulers and Omnimat rotary cutting pads. Omnigrid means versatility, visibility, and accuracy.